The time period of 1978 into 1979 was a particularly unsettling and fearful time for the residents in and around the South Mountains mountain range of western North Carolina, which is part of the Appalachian foothills, and also for the residents in and around my hometown of Kaiser. You see, there was a creature that was stalking and prowling, sometimes staying in the shadows, and sometimes fully stepping out to reveal itself during hours of daytime as well as nighttime. A creature who was killing animals, a creature who was very fond of making all of these terrifying noises, wailing and screaming and yelling into the night. And these encounters were coming in from different directions. They weren't just from one small area within the South Mountains area. And Kaiser seemed to be the epicenter of all of it. It's important for me to point out to you right now that the people of this area were then and still are a hardy, resilient breed of mountain foothills people. A people who can handle problems, a people who can handle fear, but also a people who give a healthy amount of respect to that which is unknown and unexplained and mysterious. But during this time period, people were afraid. Now, I'm going to point out to you at this point that now that I've completely finished my research, it's far more appropriate to say creatures, plural, with an unexpected twist that you're not going to see coming. And we're going to get to that. And previously, in part 1 of episode 21, I had described to you an encounter had by a fellow named Sammy Price, and also a separate encounter that his wife had. In 2 days after his sighting, he ventured into the woods. A gutsy move, if you ask me. And Mr. Price found what he believed was the den of one of these creatures. The telltale footprints was in and around the area of the den, not unlike footprints that had been found in other areas of the South Mountains. But when he looked inside, he saw the hairs of different animals. So evidently this wasn't just a place of rest for the creature, but a place where it would bring back its prey to dine upon it. And during this time period, as the days went on, people continue to have experiences, whether it be hearing the horrible noises or seeing this creature. This creature described as large and stout, black in color, hairy, walking or running on 2 legs. The reports were numerous, but only a scant few officially came forward and talked to the authorities, and fewer yet talked to the media. But I ran across a newspaper article where a fellow by the name of R.M. Newton was interviewed. Now, Mr. Newton owned a small country store near the community of Toluca, which is here in the South Mountains area, very close to Carpenter's Knob. And you may not realize it, but a country store, a small country store in a rural area, is more than just a place to buy your supplies and your groceries. It's a community hub. It's a gathering place. It's a source of information and a source for the news that may be happening in that community at any given time. This is remarkable to me. Mr. Newton reported that just in the last few days of 1978 into just the first few days of 1979, about a week's time period, that he had talked to at least 24 people who told him they had had an encounter, or that a family or loved one had an encounter with this creature. And that tells us that is more evidence that the statements made by me and other researchers that the actual encounters far outnumbered the reported encounters by a great factor. Mr. Eldridge Cook, who was the son of Minnie Cook being probably the most famous figure during all of this that was going on during this time period. But he certainly kept his finger on the pulse of his small community over near Carpenter's Knob, and he talked to many people who reported seeing this creature. There were some that reported that the creature or creatures were sighted in the apple orchard near Carpenter's Knob with impunity, just picking apples and standing there eating. And there's the different types of sightings. You know, we have the nighttime sightings, and often the nighttime sightings involved a roadside sighting where the creature may be standing by the road or crossing the road or very near the road. And I found an encounter that particularly struck a nerve with me. And it was a fellow by the name of Mr. Wayne Earl. He and his wife were driving late at night. And on the porch of his father's house, they saw a figure or a shadow. As the headlights lit the porch up, it wasn't just any figure or any shadow. It was one of these creatures. Now, what it was doing on that porch, who knows? But I think it was probably trying to peer in the windows. The people of Appalachia have some rules, and a big one is you close your curtains at night. We'll go to the extent of pinning them shut, because the mountain people, the foothills people, do not want the unknown peering in through their windows while they're in the privacy of their own home. We certainly don't want a set of red eyes looking upon us while we sleep in our bed. Horrible nighttime encounters that affected people for the rest of their lives, but also daytime encounters that equally affected people for the rest of their lives. One I ran across, she was a very credible witness, the wife of the deputy sheriff here in Cleveland County, but she was driving near the old Methodist campground. There by the pond, walking along the bank, was one of these creatures, tall, black, hairy, walking on 2 feet. And we find that the descriptions of this creature or these creatures, for the most part, and we're going to talk about that later, but these descriptions were remarkably consistent. Same general size, same general weight. And it lends further credibility to the whole thing, despite what the skeptics will say. And we're going to touch on that as well. There was a gentleman by the name of Ben Morrison, daytime sighting. Very deeply affected him. And it sounds simple, but if you put yourself in his shoes and understand how he felt, riding daytime in his car, there by the road, climbing a bank, one of these creatures, climbing the bank on 2 feet. And Mr. Morrison was actually ridiculed by a skeptic after that happened. There was a reporter by the name of Robert Williams, and I remain eternally grateful to Mr. Williams. May he rest in peace. He is actually the one who is credited with giving our South Mountains Bigfoot its nickname, which is Nobby. We call them Nobby or Nobbies to this day. There was names that the old folks used to call them: boogers, Fossimo, Wampus. But ever since the late 70s, Nobby has stuck. And I ran across an interview that he did with a hunter whose name was Taylor Falls. Now, Mr. Falls went on record as engaging one day during the summer of 1978 in illegal hunting, illegal deer hunting. And he said that a buck stepped out and he raised his rifle. But before he could take a shot, the creature stepped out between him and the buck deer. And this man who loved hunting so very much that he was willing to break the law and possibly get in trouble to do it, from that day forward, swore off hunting, swore off going into the woods. In the late spring of 1978, the same reporter interviewed a man who was fishing in one of the many waterways of the South Mountains. And there, in the quiet, calm stillness of the river or the creek, out stepped the creature. We'll pick up in episode 21, part 3, next week. And we're going to talk about the most surprising aspects of all of this. So I appreciate all of you. I will see you next Sunday night. May God bless you, and I appreciate all the continued support. God bless you.